All right,
Oh,
guys.
goodness.
Wow, this podcast is already started.
Okay.
But yeah,
Take 5.
welcome Rumbi to the podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad to be here. I'm excited.
Yeah, wow.
Thanks for having
Oh,
me.
we're having a very good, beautiful conversation before this.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, welcome to the podcast.
Totally.
Please just introduce yourself.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I knew my day was coming sooner or later.
yeah, yeah.
So, yeah, I'm so excited. My name is Rumbi. I'm an internal auditor. Right. I'm still furthering my studies in internal auditing.
Yeah.
I'm studying part-time through UNISA. And yeah, I do internal auditing, or my career is based on internal auditing, and I'm privileged to be working in that field.
Sure.
And I get to apply what I learn in school into my career. So,
Nice.
yeah.
Nice. Getting to to internal auditing.
Yes.
I've always said that I've always wanted to know what is the difference between internal auditing and external auditing.
Yeah. So internal auditing and external auditing, well, of course, the word auditing is the common factor.
Common factor, yes.
Yeah, in both of them. So that means you're auditing something.
Yep.
Right. So with internal auditing, you're measuring the current performance, and you're looking for room. You're looking for room for improvement, right? So that is within the organization, right? Your risks, your controls, basically your day-to-day in the business and the running of the business.
Okay.
Whereas external auditing, it measures the accuracy and the veracity of the financial statements. So it's more concerned with the financial aspect of things. That, yes, we've seen that people have come to work, but is that reflected on the financial statements? That's just like in your profit and things like that. And are they accurate and things like that? So that is the difference. That internal auditing, it's more in the organization, the day-to-day, and then external auditing, it focuses on the financial statements, what the business has reported to be the financial status of the company.
Why did you choose internal auditing?
It is actually a funny story.
Sure.
Because I remember before I left home, when I was supposed to choose my major, one of my mom's friends asked, I told them that, oh yeah, this is what's happening. And then she's like, why don't you do external auditing? Well, her version was external auditing,
Okay.
right? Or her, so I was like, no, auditing, I just didn't like the word auditing.
Okay.
for
Okay.
sure.
Sure.
Yeah, so then I came back to school, and then I realized that I didn't have many opportunities. I did my diploma at CPUT, District 6 campus, then Cape Town campus.
Yeah.
So after my ND, I could choose only tax. I hate tax.
Okay.
I can't stand tax. So either I would major in tax for my BCom, or there was tax, there was, I think it was financial, I don't remember. And then there was internal auditing, right? So they gave us these flyers that basically broke down what each course or each major the opportunities that it would open for you later on. So first of all, at a glance, internal auditing had all these, benefits, or rather more opportunities. I'm like, of course. And then there's the fact that I didn't like tax. Oh yeah, the other option was cost management. Cost management, at the time, I felt like it was too easy for me.
Okay.
I didn't have to struggle for it, so I felt like I would be cheating myself if I chose cost management, right? And then tax, I hate to this day. I had a tax module. I was like,
Yeah.
okay. So yeah, internal auditing was so at a glance it had like more, like it had a long list of these things. And then when I drilled deep into it, I then realized that unlike taxation, I will be focusing on South African tax. That means I'll be focused, or I will be centralized in South Africa, or it would only be applicable to South African tax laws, right? And then costs and management accounting, I didn't like it. And cost and management accounting, it's mostly focused on the manufacturing sector, right? Where you need to do your costing for your products, your raw materials, and things like that. And then internal auditing, the first thing that I picked up was that it transcends industry.
Okay.
You could be in the mining sector, you need internal auditing. You could be in the manufacturing sector, you need internal auditing. So I was like, this is it for me. And then the bonus was that internal auditing is international. So it is governed by the IIA, the Institute of Internal Auditors. So I think like when I read to you the definition, right? It's the same as I studied in the textbook. It's even the same on a Wikipedia page. Nice. Where everyone from wherever. So I like that aspect of it, that it's international. So should I decide to leave South Africa, I can still continue with internal auditing, whatever part of the world I can find myself in. So that's
sounds exciting. Just a quick question on that. When you studied a course, is the course called auditing, or what was the name of the course?
So the course is called, like right now, the designation of my course is BCom Internal Auditing.
Okay.
Yes.
I mean, when you were doing it as an ND, and a national diploma, what was it called?
As an ND, I did, yes, it was ND Internal Auditing.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Okay. Because when you explain it, it feels as if it has a big, a different name. Under it, then there's internal auditing, external auditing, taxation, and cost management.
Oh, that was my mistake. So at the time, I don't know if CPUT still has this. Well, I think they changed it probably when I was in my final year.
Okay.
So first of all, if you are like an accounting student, or if you're in the faculty of business or whatever it's called, you had to do what they call NHC. So that's like your National Higher Certificate. Okay. So it's like all of us, we were thrown into just the same things.
Okay.
So you needed to have like a financial accounting background, your costing and things like that. So at first you had to get an NHC in accountancy, right? Then from the NHC in accountancy, you get to choose whether you want to major in internal auditing or tax, but that was just only for a year, right? So with me, I then realized that if I choose internal auditing, then I can still do internal auditing on my BTech.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Whereas if you do ND accounting, I think that's what it was called, then you only had either cost and management accounting or taxation at the end.
Okay.
Right. And I just explained to you why I didn't go with the two.
Sure,
so internal auditing at that time seemed like the more
better
ideal
option, yes, for you.
Yes, the better option.
Oh, okay. No, I think I like that because I just wanted to understand because when you're explaining it, I thought probably it might have a big name which is subdivided in other stuff. Like for example, with us engineers, electrical engineer specifically, there's electrical engineer, and then under it that there's high power, and there's light current, heavy current, light current, comms, and instrumentation.
Okay.
So there's different things that you can actually go into that.
Okay,
right?
That's interesting.
And then lovely, because for me it's just for me to understand as well, and probably someone who's listening to this conversation understand. Okay, this is how it goes.
Yeah.
So you get to do in service training as well?
No. So unfortunately, in our year, that's where Fees Must Fall started.
Oh,
when we were supposed to get placement for in-service training.
Yeah.
So I didn't do in-service training.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that means that you just went straight to work.
Yes. After that, because I think it was like how long was it supposed to be? I don't remember. After we wrote exams, and then you had that period, and then you can either come back for your BTech or things like, but I didn't go for in-service training because then the office shut down before some of us were, I think they'd only just placed the first group, and then the second group was still coming up, and then Fees Must Fall decided.
How did it affect you, Fees Must Fall?
So Fees...
Were you also rivalizing with others?
No. First of all, at that time I was like, if I can't be found on campus, that's great. So because I remember, I think we, I had a friend of mine called Liswa. So the first two, because the other time, like the campus was just shut down, basically. And then we went to campus to find out when they're going to be open, because around that time, I think it was around September, October, when we were done with writing exams. So at that point, most of the students were not like on campus or whatever. Like everyone is like in a holiday mode, right? But for us, because the office had not yet told us exactly what's happening with the placement and things like that, we just knew that at that point we qualified. I think you had to have like 65 or whatever credits, yes.
Yeah, sure.
You know, so then you're like, but what's happening? You know, there was just a lot of uncertainty. So I think for like 2 days straight, we went on campus, but it was closed, or the office was even closed like at odd hours, like 11 a.m. in the morning. If the office is closed, then you know.
Fees must fall.
Fees must fall, it is, you know. So from there, we decided that, okay, fine, it's not going to probably open. And I think the university issued a statement to say that, no, all the office buildings were going to be closed from that point forward. So, I remember we even had to take matters into our own hands and started job hunting and things like that. So, but unfortunately, it didn't quite exactly pan out for us until it was time to come back for fourth year.
And then what were you doing between then and getting to your job?
So between then and getting to my job, so that was, I think that was end of 2015, if I'm not mistaken. So because we couldn't find placement, and unfortunately, on our own, we couldn't like get in-service training for ourselves, right? So I came back to do my fourth year, and then I think probably somewhere in between, then I dropped. So between then and just getting like I think that was like in July or whatever, I was just I even did a sales gig.
Okay.
Sales is not for me, and I salute all the sales men and women. It's So I did sales. I did what else did I do? I did sales. I think I had like 2-3 gigs in sales that I did. And then, then I got placement with another company that was looking for like a junior administrator. Or basically somebody with like a formal education in internal auditing and accounting to train. So that was basically my in-service training. But it was afterwards.
Sure. And then when you get to work, how was that like?
Wow. That was it was interesting. That was very interesting because you realize that, well, first of all, I had good grades. You realize that good grades don't really guarantee you placement, right? Because they needed good grades with experience, right? Whereas myself, if it was holiday, I was found watching series and doing so I didn't have any like work experience of like a waitress or whatever, right? So that was the first thing that I noticed, especially when I was job hunting, to say that wait a minute, can't they see my distinctions there? Aren't they communicating something? But no, they needed those distinctions and with experience. Yes, so they came together as a package, right? So, that was the first thing, right? And then the second thing was that the curriculum, it basically just gives you theory. But what happens in the workspace, especially now with technology and things like that, because at that time in accounting or in finance, Pastel, I don't know if you have heard about Pastel.
No.
Pastel is an accounting software.
Okay.
So Pastel at that time, it was version 14.
Okay.
That was the thing.
The thing.
Thing. And so there was Pastel, and I think there was another one, SAP.
Okay.
Yes, there was SAP, but then SAP wasn't like exactly as popular, or like, the other big companies were the ones that were using SAP, right? So with me, I had just that basic knowledge of Pastel. But then, unfortunately or fortunately, the Pastel version that we did was version 14, or it was a bit old, because I think it was version 14 point whatever. So I'm like, it looks familiar, but it's not, the exact thing. Because we had the educational package, which just gives you the basic, tips of how to navigate it, and then now you're sitting with the big thing, with the real thing, and then you're like, you know. So in that point, you now need to integrate the theory with the practical side of things to say, wow, okay, this is what's happening, right? So that's just the aspect of the software, right? And then you realize that the kind of business setups that they gave us in theory are not the same as no.
It's real life.
Yeah, it's real life, and
Yeah,
you know, there's
yeah.
like an email and things like that. Like it was. I'm like, wow. Theory on its own, it just gives you this small little picture. Basically, just gives you like a stepping stone of some sort, but it's not. It doesn't cover everything.
Do you think if you had an opportunity to actually practice during maybe school holidays, would have helped you even understand
Yes.
the course even better?
Yes, I think it would have. In fact, it would have. Because, for example, an invoice.
Okay.
When they talked about an invoice, because in the way that we studied an invoice, right, we studied like in an actual sense of an invoice, like the way it's supposed to be, right? But then you get a receipt. Your receipt at Checkers is more or less what you find in on an invoice. But then an invoice is set out in a different way, right? But then your receipt is more or less still an invoice,
Okay.
right? So in my mind, I was like, it was a, you know,
Oh, you're looking for the nice A4.
yes.
With everything.
Yes,
dates, yeah, sure,
yes.
sure.
So it was now just trying to reconcile the two to say, but you know, so that was something that was like, okay,
Sure.
the idea that I have, and
Sure.
also in theory, right? You don't get the A4. Right, because you're writing about the invoice in theory to say, for example, in accounting we have the debit and the credit.
Okay.
Right, you just like nitpicking a part of the invoice, the debit and the credit and things like that, right? And an invoice goes into a statement. So we did just the drilled down version of an invoice,
Sure.
right? Where you take apart, because there's the VAT section, there's this section, and there's that section. So now working with the actual invoice, I have the theory of the invoice, but I don't have this setup that I now
practical
have. So now
side,
I have to combine. I know what the debit side is. I know what it means. But then now looking at this whole thing is like, oh wow, you know. And then you're like, but they could have just given, you know, brought to class an example of an invoice, because what it looks like on the screen is different from what it looks like when you've printed it out. Because now when you've printed it out, it's basically based on the format of the paper that you're using.
Sure.
You know, so that was one of the things, like,
Yeah.
couldn't one of the lecturers have thought to bring
Just
to
to
class
bring, yeah,
just an invoice, you know, an invoice or a statement, and say, oh yeah, by the way, this is what it looks like. Because when you're looking at it on a screen, and with pastel, we didn't have it like every day. It was like, I think we had like probably one class every week, and it doesn't like really prepare you much. You don't really like get that much used to it before you now have to look at this thing from 9 to 5.
Yeah, definitely.
You know,
yeah, sure.
so I think that was
No, I think that's what most people say, that there's a huge gap between varsity and what do you call this?
Varsity and the
workplace,
real
the
corporate.
corporate work,
Yes, because
And then you said you went into doing this in-service training, right? You were still explaining how was it like just entering, and
yes,
how was it that how was it for you just entering into the space and trying to apply your trade in a sense?
yes. So so first of all, there were those, you know, like differences, like those major shifts, and then for a second you're like, but did I even do accounting? Was this the right, you know, thing that I was studying? Because it was so different. And then like in school, they don't teach you about the organization, or what they do teach us about the organization, like but it's just more or less the setup of a business organization. They don't teach us about the day-to-day, because when you get into a workspace, you realize that the day-to-day makes a difference. It can either make you or break you. Because in class you don't cover the toxic workplace environment.
I think maybe we can talk about that as well, because that's what I
Yeah.
was actually thinking of. That maybe we can just talk in terms of how to deal with people
Yes.
in the
In the
in the workspaces as well.
Yes.
Yeah, maybe you can
Yeah.
just, if you have if you feel like actually get into
Yeah,
that. You can
sure.
just get into
Because that part, or you like, it's, you don't find it on paper. You don't find it in a textbook. I know we did take communication skills, but that was just communication skills. It was more about the grammar.
Sure.
You know, it wasn't about like how do you
How to
deal with a
diffuse
colleague? How do you diffuse a situation?
Sure.
You know, when for example, I remember there was one of my my HR. Because to me it made sense in that way, right? Where I was using a train, right? So trains are just
stop
a
out of
mess.
nowhere, yeah, sure.
Trains are just a mess. So I got to work late, and then she had a problem because I got to work late. It was cold. I was hot. I was like freezing, right? So I thought, let me just make myself a cup of coffee, and then I go to my desk, and I said, she had a problem with the fact that I made coffee and yet I was late. I'm like, I know that I'm late, but should I sit at my desk all shivering and, because I'm not going to be productive, right? And I only needed like 2-3 minutes to make coffee and then come back to my desk, right? So that it just kind of affects your mood for the day.
Sure.
When you're like, but there's, bigger things that are happening other than just I took an extra 5 minutes in my lateness
True.
to just, because that is just self-care. That is just putting me in a position to be able to do my work for the day.
Definitely.
Because at least now I'm comfortable, I'm warm, right? And then I can focus on, and it's not like it was intentional. It was something beyond my control, public transport, right? And there was another aspect of when you're a junior, especially when you're a junior,
Sure.
where everybody thinks that they can just, make you do these
Give you
other,
all the
give you like an extra
petty work,
bit of exactly petty work, right? So with me, there was that aspect where simply because you're a junior, they don't think that you can think.
Okay.
So they kind of like
Sure,
look down
sure,
upon you,
sure.
right? So with me, fortunately, I owe this to communication skills, right? So I remember this one time. So the first company that I worked at, it was just messed up, and that the theory or university doesn't prepare you for that, because now you have to deal with that from a personal level, right? From like, okay, fine, this is me and this is the situation. How do I deal with it? How can I cope with it, right? And even just making friends, and because you realize that no, I'm not working with like same age people. You're now working with somebody else's mother. You're now working with,
sure.
there's that age difference, that age gap that some people tend to manipulate to their advantage.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. So there
Call
was
you Rumbi, my girl.
yeah. Yeah, things like that. Or, you're calling this person by name and you're like, but this person is like the same age as my mother.
Sure.
And you see this person is also like messing up and you're like, but how do I go about it? Things like that. And I remember this one time, I think it was actually probably my first or my second day. So I had 3 days of training before, because like when I got to work, our director was on leave, right? So and then he came back and then he's like, oh, okay, fine, we're just going to see what she can do and things like that. So they could listen in to the phone calls.
Okay.
Right? So part of my jobs was I did datas. So that was just what they made me do was to follow up on people that had returned debit orders.
Okay.
Right? Your debit order bounces and then they're like, hey, Mr. Pandek,
Yeah.
what's happening? Your debit
Stop
order
calling
bounced.
me.
Yes. So in that, I don't know, it was like, it seems like it was a setup or whatever, I don't know. So they made me call this guy, and it turns out this guy had like 2 or 3 returned debit orders in the past. So it wasn't like a new one where you're like,
Okay.
oh, hey, this is what happened. And then the person goes like, maybe I got paid late, whatever, just run the debit order again. But I mean, if you have 2, 3, 4 times prior. Clearly, this person is a problem.
Yes.
So now that's where it takes your interpersonal skills. Because in that moment, if I had stammered, because you realize that somebody can pick up on your tone, that if you're not confident, then they're like, yeah, okay, fine, I can just
walk over you.
Yeah, walk over you.
Yeah.
So fortunately, I was well spoken. So I was able to just reason with this guy to say, but you have 2 other debit orders that have bounced, and this is where we are. So either we're going to cut off your service, and or you pay. And so in me interact, because of course this person is now trying to get defensive, because he knows he's
at fault. Yeah.
he's at fault.
Yeah.
So just me listening to him and just reasoning with him without letting him know that I'm scared, but just the kind of confidence and the factualness that was in my voice. This guy was able to say, well, okay, fine, let me just pay it, 2 months now, and then pay the other 2 months at the end of the month. So just that aspect, that I was able to speak to this person that was labeled like a problem, this person didn't blow off in my ear, but he engaged with me, and we got to like a logical conclusion, if you would say, or like a mutual agreement. So that was like, oh wow. And you realize that takes a personal, communication skill. It takes a personal kind of temperament to approaching a situation, as opposed to what you are taught in school, right? Because we have different temperaments and things like that. Because I could have been like, but dude, you know that you owe us money, so just pay us the money. And then somebody gets defensive, and then it gets ugly from that point. So
you must stop calling me.
I know.
And then how did that turn out in the office then, after you successfully getting that money back?
Yes. So now later on, a colleague of mine came, because that was the boss's first day back at work. And then they go, oh wow, you really handled it well, because they listened to not just that conversation, but then the other conversation, even how I said, hi, good day, Mr. Pandeka. My name is so-and-so. I'm calling from this company. How are you? And the reason why I'm calling, like, it wasn't just abrupt. It wasn't just like, just smack bang in there, right? It was just in a logical manner, so that you get the attention of this person, right? So unbeknownst to me, they were listening in. So just me being able to, like, being fluent in what I was saying, right? It kind of earned me respect, because I'm like, oh, okay, fine, she knows more or less, what's up.
I think that's a very beautiful, successful story.
It really is. It worked in my favor, because there's that tendency of looking down on a junior intern or things like that. But from how I handled that, they were like, oh, okay, I think maybe we can.
We've got ourselves a gem here.
Yeah, we've got ourselves a gem here. And that's basically how it progressed from then on.
Okay. And then that's probably your first job, right? And then moving on to, did you do several jobs before the one that you're doing now?
Actually, no.
Really? So just move to the one that you're doing now.
So from So I think when I say that it progressed from there, because actually let me take it just a little bit back to the interview.
Okay.
So to the how I got, it's actually a very humbling story. Okay. So I got an email, or rather a message. Yeah. And then he called me. I think it was on a Sunday after church. I think we were still at the Claremont.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, so this guy called me, I think around 7 on a Sunday evening. I'm like, isn't this a scam or whatever? So he introduced himself. This person responding to your ad, yada, yada, yada. When can you come for an interview? So there was either a Monday or a Tuesday slot. I was like, I'll come in on Monday. Right, so I went in on Monday. I found out that this guy had taken time from his vacation. He wasn't even in the country. Okay. Took his time, went through my Gumtree post. I had a job seeker ad there. Nice. Went through it. I think I had my CV attached there. I don't remember. And that was on a Sunday evening. Took his time. He's not even in the country. right, lined up an interview for me. And then I went to the interview. I really liked, I clicked with one of the ladies. So there was the GM and then there was the internal auditor.
Nice.
Right. And immediately I clicked with the internal auditor because we spoke the same language.
Yeah,
yes.
sure.
So immediately when I noticed that, no, I think I've got this one's ear, I focused my attention from impressing the GM to impressing her.
Nice.
Yeah. So I did that. And then afterwards, they said, "Oh yeah, we can actually start training tomorrow."
Wow.
I'm like, "Oh wow!"
So you got the job on the spot.
Yeah, so I got more or less. I got the job on the spot.
Yeah.
Right. So when I came in, and then after the calls, the boss is like, "Oh wow, we actually like her." Right. And then now, the what do you call it? The theory that I had, or the learning training, the theory-based training that I had from varsity, and that I spoke. I spoke her language.
Okay.
Right. So she was always interested in me. She was always interested in showing me how to do things.
Yeah.
And I'm the type of person that quickly catches on what's happening. So in me doing that, I actually caught her attention. So she started getting other people to kind of notice me on what I was doing. And even I remember they gave me that debt collection.
Okay.
We call them return debit orders. I had that. And I applied the accounting side of it, like reconciling and things. She really liked that she didn't have to teach me from the beginning.
Yeah.
She could just show me that, okay, fine, I need you to do ABC. And I would do ABC. And I would just do it successfully. I didn't have to go back and forth like, excuse me, I'm not too sure about this. And so that really worked in my favor. And then just like, oh wow, this one makes my job easier. Yeah. So I think I worked there for probably about 2 years. 2 years. And then she eventually left the company. Oh yeah, and then there's another manager that came afterwards, and then we just kind of clicked because I already clicked with her, and then she clicked with him, and then he also realized that this one is a good one, right? And then they became like my mentors at that point, and even up to now. And funny enough, I'm still working with the same people.
Beautiful.
So they left the company first, and then they took me to the new company. And that's how I mind you, I didn't even do. So yeah, they pushed me basically.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I think in that also it's just a favor of God.
Nice. I really like that. Not necessarily I like that, but it's an interesting story as well. Like you're saying, that it's a humbling story, and sometimes is guys, for those who are listening, it's just apply yourself when you get to jobs and. Just put 110%.
Yes.
And that opens doors already. Yeah. And imagine these two people that you say that they're your mentors. They say that, okay, if we are moving, we can't leave this one.
We can't leave this one. Yeah, because it was, they didn't have to. And it was even unexpected when I got the call. And I'm like, what? Because at that point, he had left the company, I think probably over a year. And still he had me in mind. Yeah. To say, I need her on my team. And that's how I got to where I am. Yeah. And like that really just putting in your best, it really helped me because funny enough, remember the HR that I told you about? Yeah. He came in, both of them, they fought her on my behalf.
Okay.
Because she just wanted to pounce on me or to take advantage of me. Yeah. And they were like, no. And I remember at a point even was like when trains were just quite a difficult situation. It's like, it's fine. We're going to organize transport for you so that you don't have to deal with her. Nice. And if she sees me, he would come and make sure that she speaks to him, not me, and like both of them. So it was just like
I think I like that I know our pastor usually says that you need to be someone of value. So that it's like I know the example that he made was when you're sick, the bosses they don't send you on leave, they send the whole pharmacy to make sure that you're okay. And that's the kind of value that you need to work towards. And this is not just value, it's also competence, because competence brings you that close to your bosses. It's not just being a nice person making coffees because your boss is not paying you to
yes,
to make office,
to add value.
Exactly, add value into the company.
Yes.
Yeah.
So just to add on that about adding value,
Sure.
that is also another aspect of internal auditing, that it is a value adding engagement, or it's a value adding process,
Sure.
right? So it's not just adding value it's not just adding value like in the sense that you put it, but it's in adding value towards the end goal, towards we spoke before, shareholder value creation.
Sure.
Right. So and I really like what Pastor said, because that actually really helped me, that teaching, to say you're not going to work to just fill in the space. You need to add value. I think I remember he had a teaching about that when we were still at Clement. That really worked in my favor when I applied it.
Sure.
To say that these people left the company. They could have decided to find anyone, right? But then they had me in mind.
Sure.
Because of the value addition that I had,
already put
into their different, because they were my managers, they were my superiors, right? I added value to what they were doing,
Sure.
right? And they're like, oh, okay, fine. I think we really like working with this one, right? And that also was because of how I was holding myself as an employee and as a person. Because there's two types of things. There is your professional value addition, right, to the company that you're contracted for.
Okay.
And there's your value addition as a colleague.
Nice. I like
You
that.
get it.
I like
So if you merge the two, then you realize that some people have gone on to make really beneficial friendships out of just working well together with a colleague, and it's not just about the professionalism side of it, but it's, if you merge the two, then it makes for wholesome people. It makes for the environment that is what goes into the workspace.
Sure.
Right, it's a mixture of the
work
professional,
culture.
the work culture.
Sure,
Yes, so it's the
sure.
professional side of things, and then it's the interpersonal side of things as well.
Definitely. So moving on to the work that you do now, right?
Yes.
Because I think we did do more of a background, so that we're getting to the work that you're doing now.
Yes.
So what exactly are you doing that speaks into internal auditing? Yeah.
Okay, so what I do, I actually love that. My title is it's broad.
Okay.
In the sense that it covers risk.
Okay.
Right, it covers risk, financial risk. It covers internal auditing, where I think there's the process of internal auditing where you need to trace. There's tracing, there's vouching, there's things like that. It covers that aspect as well. So basically, auditing is like you're following something, right? The controls that are in place, right, towards adding value to the end goal. And there's the accounting aspect of it, which I really love. I just love that it's broad-based. It gives me even exposure, right? So there's the accounting side of things. I do reconciliations.
Okay.
And then the other internal auditing side of it is investigations and reporting. I actually love investigations and reporting. I even considered forensic auditing from just that one aspect of it. And somebody was like, yeah. Exactly. So I really got really interested in that. There's data analysis as well, and what else? I think those are the four main ones, where it's the accounting side of things and more internal auditing, risk, internal auditing, and your controls and things like that.
This is just a question that I was just thinking of, right?
Okay.
What makes a person a good auditor, in your own words? When I said that this person is a very good internal auditor, what skill are you having to say that, okay, this one is a good internal auditor? For example, if you're an engineer, I'm just going to give, I think you understand my question, right?
I do.
Okay, sure.
I do.
Me just not
Yeah.
I was about to.
It's fine.
Sure.
So what makes an internal auditor, which is also one of the things that drew me to internal auditing rather, there is the four principles of professionalism, right? Or they say the four principles of an internal auditor.
Sure.
Right? I think they are probably found in all the other professions, but they might be nested in some other aspect of it. So there's integrity, there's diligence, there's prudence, there's objectivity. So what makes a good internal auditor is that you objective in your work, because I deal with a lot of data, financial data sometimes, and I deal with the human aspect of it, right? To say, am I objective? To say, I know it is my colleague that has made this mistake, right? I speak to him, we had coffee together this morning, but when it comes to me doing my job, am I going to follow the proper channels regardless? So that is you being objective, you being impartial in passing judgment on the set of information or the set of data that you are reviewing, right? Like I said, the investigations side of things that I do, the data analysis and things like that. To say that, hey, I know you're my buddy, but you made a mistake, and due costs must still take place, right? So and then there is that, and there's another side of it where internal auditors, right, we work within the organization, but you still have to be independent, right? So independent in the sense that you are not swayed by what this one is saying or what the other one is saying.
So
because
like lobbying.
Yes, so you still need to uphold the principles of internal auditing within the organization.
Okay.
Yes, so I think in my words, a good internal auditor is when you're accurate, because it takes a lot of accuracy, because you're reviewing a lot of like different controls. It could be like controls, it could be financial, like on my side of things is financial. You need to be accurate. You need to more or less like neat peek on information. So you need to be accurate, you need to be resilient, because I remember the other time I had to work with, when somebody dumps work on you, or like this huge amount of data, thinking that it's too much, it's just going to say, yeah, okay, fine, let's just go with your version. No, with internal auditing, you have to be able to vouch for what you are saying, right? What you are reviewing, to say, okay, fine, I'm doing a report on this. Can I vouch for it, right? Can I say that it is concise, it is correct, it is factual, that I've done my due diligence, right? Is it prudent? Is it with integrity? So I think if you have those principles nested in how you work, I would say that you make a good internal auditor.
Nice. I like that. It's so interesting. Getting into the politics at work.
Yes.
You guys work with a lot of money, right? Internal auditors. Do you kind of like, because you see with us engineers, what we do is a client comes here and tells me that I have 100,000, 100 million project, right? And then they say, okay, make electrical engineering is going to be, let's say, 30 million of that 100,000, right?
Yeah.
And then when we're designing, it's something which is, you can't make a mistake. Like you can't spec a small cable or whatever, right? With you guys, when you're auditing all the stuff, with making a mistake, how does that affect your work? Because I know you talked about accuracy. How do you even reconcile that kind of mistakes and everything?
Yes. So that is where like the human aspect side of things come into play, where you're like, we know that you are a human being. Even I myself, I am a human being, right? So in my reporting, I could probably say 1 million instead of 10 million, right? But if I've done that in a mistake where you can trace back to what happened, and you can see that no, she was just too excited with the zeros and added another zero,
Sure.
Because then from that point on, you can trace back to where the transaction started. For example, in this situation, to say, okay, fine, we signed a contract to say that this is the 100 million, and within this 100 million, we have this 30 million, right? So in this 30 million, if somebody made a mistake, that is like a human error, right? So that is where the controls come into place to say that, okay, fine, with our electrical engineers, what controls can we put in place? First of all, to make sure that these kind of mistakes don't happen, right? And then to say, if you remember when I mentioned the difference between internal auditing and external auditing, is that internal auditing is also more focused on the improvements that can be made. So we say, okay, fine, we've set a controls for this project to say that to remove or to reduce the mistakes, let's put this control in place, right? And then if that control doesn't adequately cover all the mistakes that can be made, we say, okay, fine, what else, what's a second layer can we add to it, or how can we improve on this control that's already in place? That is now where you then look at what was the intention of you making a mistake. Was it maybe because, for example, you're using a scissors, or you're using, I don't know if you use that, cutting your cables, or
sure.
Or was it like a tool that malfunctioned? Then of course, if a tool that malfunctioned, that is not your fault, right? That is, and we know that tools malfunction at any given time. Then we look at that aspect to say, okay, fine, for tools not to malfunction when you need them to be functioning perfectly, why don't we say that all the tools need to go through inspection the day before you need to do your work? You get it? So then you always come back to say, what was the cause of this error? Was it intentional? Like you said, politics. I don't know if you watched Annika's Andre De Ruyter's interview. Yes, where he said like that there would be sabotage where somebody just punches, Then in that case, then that is intentional. That cannot be,
mistake.
Yes, that cannot be mistake, and that has to be taken with like some certain degree of urgency. Then that has to be escalated to some level for investigation or whatever, things like that. So there's always, you look at a situation, and then you trace back to what caused it, why are we here, and then improving from there to say, how can we prevent this happening in future?
I see. So basically you're saying that, because for me what I wanted to understand is, you see, when you guys, this is the next question that I want to ask.
Okay.
On accuracy, right?
Yes.
What measures do you put to make sure that you are accurate?
Yes.
Yeah.
So the measures that we put, that I as an internal auditor, yes, I as an internal auditor is accurate, is that if you are another internal auditor, if you get a copy of the work that I've done, or if I hand it in to my supervisor, he or she should be able to make the same assumptions as I have, or the same judgment as I have, based on the information that I've presented to them, right? So that is where, remember when I spoke about vouching, tracing, verifying, and things like that. So that just goes back to checking the integrity of my data, to check that if it's calculations, have I done them wrong? And I like, at work, I use like a spreadsheet, and that spreadsheet comes already built with formulas.
Oh, I see.
Right. So those formulas, if you put it in wrong, it's not going to give you like an accurate figure, right? And that also touches on the aspect of controls. So how to make sure that I am accurate, then I have another person verify my set of data. That if they have that set of data, does it correspond with what I have and what they have? Like specifically, like at work, we have like a system that we work from, and we have another department, right, that works with the same data. So I'm like at the end, right? So how I check my accuracy is that I check on what is the information that's on the system. I'm not the one that puts in the information on the system, or I put in just the beginning, and then there's somebody that's going to take it through, and then at the end I'm going to check their accuracy, and then I'm going to check my accuracy against this to say that they did this without my involvement, and I did this without their involvement, and at the end it ties up to be the same totals. And if you look at the other third layer, it's still the same.
And then just to introduce external auditors, right? So external auditors, they audit you guys in the internal.
Actually, no.
Okay.
I remember my lecturer saying that no,
Yeah,
an
yeah.
external auditor cannot audit me because we are, but they can audit part of our reports. That is, if they fall within the ambit of their auditing. If it falls within the ambit or the purview of the financials that they are auditing. Or if maybe, for example, we submitted reports alongside the financial statements, then they can come to us and say, you submitted this, can you give me clarity on your report and things, on certain aspects of it? They cannot audit my work.
So, which means basically, like you were saying that audit, because I'm understanding it. So when you're auditing, you also do like reports. You're writing like long reports and all those stuff.
Yeah.
Really?
Yes. So not necessarily. I think that aspect depends on which industry you're working in,
Okay.
or on which level
Yeah.
that you're working. Because fortunately for me, I don't have to write like a whole report and things like that. So when I do my reconciliations, that counts as a report to me, because I then do that
I
and then I
see,
send
yeah.
it to somebody.
Sure.
Right. So if there's a mistake or an error or whatever, then they come back to me and say, oh yeah, this is what's happening. And then you kind of like circle back to see what happened, where. And I think that also comes into checking my accuracy as well. So,
And I think maybe I just want to get to the dark side. I don't know if there
is
a
it?
dark side.
Oh, no. There is a dark side.
Okay.
Because, for example, if you're auditing controls, right? So if it's controls, that is, so controls, that's basically to say that this is the ideal situation that we want to work, or that we think is going to work. And then you get to the reality, right? To say, for example, if it's the attendance, to say, ideally, every employee must be at work by 8, right? But actually, not all employees are at work
Sure.
by 8, and then you look at why are they not at work by 8, and what is the disadvantage of them not being at work, or what is the impact of their late coming, that is, like, what is the impact of it on the organization or on the performance, especially if it's like in a production company where you need the production to run specifically at 8, because you're working with time, you're working with specific quantities, where, for example, a machine can produce maybe 10,000 bottles in like 2 hours. So you now see that if somebody is not there 30 minutes or so before that, then that's going to affect the output at the end.
Sure.
And the bottlenecks and things like that. If, for example, the people that pack, if now they are delayed, then the other process is going to be delayed and things like that. So the dark side of it is now when it comes to who is involved, or which part of it is it like with top management and things like that? Because if it's with top management, then you get a a situation where they're like, yeah, no, I think you're stepping into something that you're not supposed to be stepping into, because now at that point nobody is following controls, or people are just bending in,
the bending the rules.
yes,
a bit,
and then they
sure.
don't want somebody to report on it.
Okay, so which means after you do a thorough job, upstairs they can just move some stuff just to make it, I don't know.
But if they move stuff, then that is a red flag. Then that is somebody breaking the law.
Sure.
That is, but usually in my side of things, it's not usually like that. But I think in the broader scheme of things, because if you're an internal auditor, you report to these, like what they call the CAE, the Chief Audit Executive. So, for example, if I were like doing like the proper like internal auditing, right? You would have like a team that you report your findings to, right? And that team, in that internal auditing, we're supposed to be independent. We're supposed to be impartial.
Okay.
Or we're supposed to be like objective, right? That if you see that it is the CEO that's not following the controls, then that CEO has to account, or I still need to include it in my report to say, but it was the CEO that is, or we did an audit on this, called an audit engagement. We did an engagement on this thing, and in that our findings are ABC. The CEO is always late. The CEO is maybe using company resources for his own personal things or things like that. So in that point, I report, right, to whoever, either you can report to the board of directors or whatever. So in that point, nobody has can tamper with the findings that I have. And even if they do, then that just comes to the ethics, and that's fraud or that's a crime, and then somebody has to be brought to book. All right. So I think that usually happens in like big corporates and in public sectors as well.
Have you heard of a story that happened within your cycles as internal auditors?
Well, no. I think something that I would say is a bit close. I don't know if you are familiar with it. What's her name? Babita Dokran. She worked for some other hospital, and she found something, reported it, and she got killed for it.
What?
Yes. So that's why when I said I want to go into forensic audit, I'm not saying that she was a forensic auditor, but it was in that circle where she picked up something, she raised it to her manager, and her manager realized that she's a problem, she's a threat that needed to be removed, and she died, or she was murdered because of that. And I think more or less, if you're looking at what's happening in ESCOM, that's more or less where people are trying to cover their tracks and things like that.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, but personally, no, there's no story.
No, I think I like that, but for me, this has made me understand internal auditing, and I really I love this conversation so much.
Yeah.
And I think maybe just to conclude, I remember earlier on we were talking about, in a sense, growth. In the because you said that there's BCom and there's also getting into different boards and all those stuff.
Yes.
Please just explain that, so at least for someone who says that, okay, we understand that this is what you're going to be doing, but we just want to see in terms of growth, how do I grow within the...
Yes. So with internal auditing, I think, like I said, that I like that it was broad, right? The things that are covered within the ambit of internal auditing.
Sure.
It's not just the internal auditing side of things, because for you to do an internal auditing course, you need a background in finance. So I have accounting background, I have management accounting background, right? And then I have the internal auditing. So if I'm not applying exact internal auditing, I can still focus on the financial accounting side of things, right? And then the management accounting side of things, or in my case, I get to combine all three in what I do. Nice. So most universities, they now have a BCom in internal auditing, or I think depending on where. BTech internal auditing if you're at a Technicon, or BCom internal auditing, right? So if you do your BCom internal auditing, that's like your degree, and then you can further that with I think nowadays there's what they call an advanced diploma. I must confess, I don't quite really know what is the difference of that and BTech. Or it's just basically, I think more or less, I think I guess. And if you get a BTech, if you get a BCom, right, then you can get an honors. Yes. So an honors is just furthering on that. It's more centered on your major, right? And then you get your honors. From that, you can either go the professional route, where you register with the board. Like, for example, in my situation, I can register with the IIA, the Institute of Internal Auditors. So in that, then you're going the professional route, where you write board exams and then you get certified, right? You get a designation, like when you have done, or like there's an internal auditing technician, there's an internal auditing I've forgotten another one, but then there's like a technician, and then you get like an internal auditor, and then you get a certified internal auditor. So there's like different designations depending on how many board exams or at what stage of your professional route you are.
Sure.
Yeah, and so I think, I know this is a little bit controversial,
Okay.
but a CIA, a certified internal auditor, is like an equivalent of like a CA. I think just for people to understand that if you're a chartered accountant, you have now followed the accounting professional route, board exams, things like that, and then you get to a chartered accountant. So a chartered accountant in the accounting route, and then a certified internal auditor in the internal auditing route.
Beautiful.
Yeah, or you can even do your master's in internal auditing. Yeah. So I think when you do your master's in internal auditing, if you now then want to go to the professional route, I'm sure they will exempt you for some of the qualifications, and I think with experience as well. And then you get to write like maybe a few board exams, and then you get to a CIA.
I just thought of an interesting, funny question, right?
Yeah.
Does auditing have more males, or does it have more females?
Oh, in my experience, the more people that I know that are in this profession, it's males. Yeah, because I know I had an internal auditing lecturer. She was a female. But I think it may be more balanced. I think it's a little bit balanced.
Oh, it's balanced. Okay.
Yes, I would say it's a little bit balanced. And if it's maybe biased, it's probably towards the men.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. I thought maybe it was just, I didn't know. Because I just wanted to I just thought about it. I was like, okay, I want to know.
Yeah, it's more like CAs. I think, in my opinion, I think it's a bit balanced. Where you get both females and males, and I think both sexes are kind of equally competent and equally represented.
Oh, okay,
yes. Great. Yeah.
Then that's it. Thank you so much, Rumi, for coming.
You're welcome.
I really enjoyed this conversation. Just getting to understand what CIAs do.
CIAs, that's the dream. Thank you for prophesying into my future.
Of course, yeah. I think I really like that. But thank you so much for coming through, sharing wisdom and knowledge. And I think maybe just to close it is just say something to encourage someone who's listening to this.
Yes. I think what I would encourage someone is, or especially full-time students, which is something that I learned the hard way, is that if you are a full-time student, just get yourself out there. Just get a gig over the semester break. It doesn't have to be something that's specifically related to what you're studying for, but just getting that job experience, just being in that routine of, being accountable work-wise to somebody. I think it really gives an edge, and also just having some sort of experience on your CV, because it's not just about the grades. I know for a fact that is, yes, they are beneficial, but then grades with experience, they just put you at a better advantageous position. So I would say if you're a full-time student, go out there, get a gig, volunteer for something so that you have some kind of experience, and I think it will help you to manage expectations when you get into a corporate setting. So yeah, I think that I
won't stop talking about this, that holidays are not for you guys to go back home and just go and eat mangoes and I don't know what you're doing.
I know, like just roaming in the streets, counting cars and
exactly. Holidays are for students to go into companies and learn the work. Yeah. And I don't know how many times I should say this, and this is also a plea to companies that allow the students to come through, because at the end of the day, these are the people who are going to be productive to your companies. Yeah. So
totally.
Thank you so much for that, and I guess this is a good night.
Yes.
A wonderful day. If you're listening this to the day, morning. Or evening.
Also depending on which time zone
you
are listening this from.
Thank you so much, Rumbi.
You are welcome. It's a pleasure.
Awesome.
Until next time.
Yes.